So this is a follow-up to the video I did about the UK about 4 months ago, about 5 months ago, saying the UK was finished. So currently there was a rebound of the Liz Truss government, basically got usurped, a coup, and we had Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor, the geography teacher who has no idea about economy. He is now Chancellor, and Sunak, the unappointed, unelected, even by their own members, as Prime Minister. So it's totally zero democracy. But anyway, they were put in power to stabilize the ship. Now, as I've been seeing and commenting to all my friends, an absolute shocker has been happening in the bond market, which is the UK 10-year bonds have been going up and up and up. Now, they were always below the US. So whatever the US is, the UK was always below during ZIP, zero interest rate policy. Now, suddenly, even though the UK interest rate is below the US, right, it's 4.5%, the US is 5.25, so therefore bonds, obviously, for America should be higher, right, because they're offering you more interest rates. But it's been slowly, only in the last few months, it kind of went parallel and rapidly. This is not, and slowly, the gap has widened massively. Currently, the US 10-year Treasury yield is 3.8%. The UK's is 4.4. Now, to put that into perspective, Greece, basket case Greece that doesn't sell anything, that has average wages of 700 euros a month, that is an absolute disaster zone, is 3.9%. Investors have more faith in Greece and requiring less interest than the UK. Italy, 220% debt to GDP ratio, second only to Japan, and with the world's third largest aging population, a country that's getting smaller every year, right? So there's less people to pay off this huge debt, is 4.3%. But the UK's is 4.4% and going up and up, with no sign of ending. And worse than that, we also had the UK's immigration figures last week, which came in at a whopping 1.2 million new immigrants from Nigeria, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh mainly. Only 160,000 from Europe. So that is where you are going, which obviously increases house prices, increases rent prices. We have the UK inflation figure that came in. It went down, oh wow, so amazing, to 8.7%. That's eye-watering. The US is at 4.9. But worse than that was core inflation, which strips out energy and food, right? Energy and food running at 20% now in the UK inflation. Mind-boggling, right? The highest of all G7 countries. Anyway, let's take that out, right? Stripping that out. Core inflation went from 6.2 and expected was 6.2, and the worst was 6.4 to 6.8, right? That is how bad it's got. Core inflation has gone up. It's gone up over the month. That is how bad the UK is now, which has basically led economists to it's guaranteed that the UK will have to increase interest rates to 5.5, maybe even 6%, which is insane. Now, when you get to those amounts, you're in a death spiral, right? And the reason is, as I said before, March was the third highest borrowing on record, March 2023, and April just now was the second highest borrowing on record, right? They're borrowing because they have to pay so much in interest. Interest rate was £10 billion, right? The portion is £10 billion is what they're paying in interest, which you can do 20 hospitals with. That's what they paid last month just on interest. That is why your borrowing is going up. Now, how do you borrow? So you can issue government debt, but we know they can't really do that. Well, they can, but the interest rate goes up because no one wants to buy it, right? Issuing government debt or just printing money. So they're probably doing a bit of both. The Bank of England, who used to buy all the government debt, QE, can't do that anymore, right? They're supposedly going to do QT. I can't see that happening, but supposedly they'll do it. They're supposed to sell 270 billion of bonds this year. It's just not going to happen in this environment. It just cannot happen. No one wants to buy it. Legal in General, one of the biggest insurers, has stopped buying UK gilts. They're only buying US. Right? It's got to levels, guys. We are in it. The UK is in such deep trouble. I can't tell you, oh, it's not on the BBC. Oh, it's not on the Financial Times. Oh, it's not here. Yeah, because they don't want to tell you how bad it is. It's really bad. Like, I've never seen such a thing. More than Greece? More than Greece, UK borrowing costs? I don't know when that's ever happened. I don't know. I mean, check it up. I don't know when that's ever happened. So it's really bad. It's going to get worse. And then the government has only two options, and that is to increase the interest rates, but that means it's a debt spiral. That means you increase who's the biggest debtor? The government. They have to pay more in interest rates, but that means they would have to borrow more because they're already paying, the UK is already paying the highest taxes on record. So what can they do? They cannot have to borrow more, but if you borrow more, well, no one trusts your debt. That means you're going to have to increase interest rates. But you can't increase interest rates on those 10-year bonds because then you have to pay more. And do you get the cycle? So then in the end, the only thing they're going to have to do is yield curve control, which is what Japan does. And that essentially means when you do yield curve control, you reduce that interest rate. You basically cause QE again. When you do QE, essentially you're printing money, you inflate assets, you cause more inflation. And that's it. That's the only thing they can do, causing more inflation. So their option is more inflation, or, well, I don't know what the other option is, just absolute catastrophe. I don't know what the other option is. I mean, I don't know if your 10-year yields just keep rising. I don't know where you go with that. I think their only option really is QE, basically, and that's it. That is how bad it is. So it's really bad in the UK. Go and see a Telegraph article on about it, saying the UK is really in trouble.